Cool. So you said you'd just done there's a score for a documentary, yeah?
Yeah, well, Panthoot was, I finished the score about a year ago, but it's still doing its festival run
Ah,
currently.
okay.
Yeah, but really, really cool documentary with Dr. Jane Goodall in it. So it's been making the rounds.
And you are happy with your work on it?
Yeah, I got to record a choir for the end credits, which was really cool. So the basic gist of the documentary is it follows a man named Stanley Nyandwi who works at Jane Goodall's Chimp Eden, and he's kind of known as the chimp whisperer. He learned how to communicate with chimpanzees in the way that they communicate with one another.
Okay.
So he rescues and rehabilitates chimpanzees who are victims of abuse or poaching or things like that. So he originally is from the country of Burundi. So I got to study their traditional music, and they have this really cool whispered chanting that's very unique to their culture. So
Okay.
I got to write a choir piece in Kirundi, which is his native language, with whispered chanting, which is really awesome because, never had the opportunity to study Burundi, let alone create something with that culture. So
Yeah.
it was a really wonderful learning experience, and he's super great, really nice guy too.
Okay. And how different was this, I guess, his native musical style to anything that you'd done before?
So the whole piece was a cappella, so pretty standard for what we hear in Western society.
Okay.
But the whispered chanting, I think the difficulty with it was communicating to the choir how it is, because it's kind of it's not exactly whispering and it's not like full chanting. It's like in the middle of it, and it comes from your chest. So it took a bit of practice with them to feel it out. But I think once they caught on to the general idea, it was pretty simple for them to handle. So nothing too insane. And Stanny actually told me that this chanting is performed particularly for royalty as a form of respect. So I also think of the choral piece as a sign of respect towards him and his work with the chimpanzees and everything.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, that sounds like a very interesting project to get to work on. Do you think is that the biggest task you've had to take on?
Yeah, I think I take on such a wide range of projects that everything is a great learning experience, and it usually transcends so many different genres. So in the choral world, it definitely was my biggest undertaking so far. For other projects, I think there are certain things I had to overcome and learn about, like on the job as well. But I think those are probably more along the lines of electronic works as opposed to things like choral that are very much like you record and then it's there, and you're not altering it electronically or anything.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, no problem. How did you, I guess, how do you find your work? How do you get a steady stream of work coming towards you? Do you work with an agent, or is it also coming outside of that? Or
It's currently just me right now. I think that composer agents, I've kind of done a lot of smaller indie projects, and then also producing for artists on the side, which isn't really in the world of film scoring. And I've kind of learned that composer agents wait for you to get something a little bit bigger, because otherwise they're not really seeing much of a return. So, but it's totally normal for a composer not to have an agent for a while, I'm realizing, which is nice. It makes me feel less worried about it. But I get most of my work from I mean, I have like a network here at home with kids I went to school with who are now, full-time filmmakers. And then I have social media, which has gotten me a few gigs with, people who might follow me and something might pop up. And then I feel like also word of mouth. So I might work with one person and they might recommend me to another person. So they definitely are coming from all over, which is really great because I'm getting the opportunity to work with people from all over the world and not just here in Arizona. So that's something I really value.
Awesome. And how do you feel about the whole social media element of being a creative person?
I have such a love-hate relationship with it. I mean, so like our generation grew up with social media. So it is something that I recognize is an important networking and marketing tool. On the other hand, I feel like there's quite a bit of pressure for us to constantly be putting good quality work out on like all the platforms, and we're like figuring out algorithms and hashtags and all those annoying things that we don't want to deal with. So I actually, for like a few months, I hired an Instagram manager to help me with it, just kind of to see how it would work. Okay. And on one hand, it was nice because this person was worrying about when to post and what hashtags and blah, blah, blah. But then I feel like, I don't know, they were kind of expensive. And I think the return on investment, I was like, this doesn't seem like it would be great to have for a long-term period. I just need to learn how to do this on my own.
Yeah.
Which, again, comes back to the annoying parts. But then, obviously, I wouldn't have gotten these gigs through social media if I didn't have anything. So I'm just in a constant battle over it.
Yeah, I think you're not alone with that one. I think everyone in the space, nearly everyone, I think some people love it, but I'm one of the people that is also battling with it, even though I work in that area myself as well.
Yeah.
It's it's a little bit frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
So you said you got out of school middle of last year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I graduated into the pandemic, sadly.
Yeah, that's a bit rough. How have you been coping with all of that? How's things where you are?
Well, here in Arizona, it's bad and then got worse. So I think we're like one of the worst in the country, if not the world. And that's kind of a leadership situation that the governor of Arizona he's a crazy person, but I'm glad that Trump is no longer president because I think that is a good sign for our state that things will start to hopefully get better.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, myself and my family have been, really pretty strict about what we're doing and where we're going, and keeping myself busy with work helps a lot because otherwise I think I'd be going insane. Although I feel, and I'm sure you might be able to relate, anyone would, having that certain moments of like quarantine fatigue where you're just like, I hate everything. I'm angry. This is stupid. So, it comes in waves, and I'm just like trying to get myself to the point where I can get vaccinated. And then I just like see the vaccination as like a light at the end of the tunnel, which I'm not sure how much of a light at the end of the tunnel it is, but it's the only thing I really have going right now.
Fair enough. At least there is a light. Everyone has to find their light out of this situation, I guess.
Yeah.
When you say you're staying busy with work, it's all audio work, or you're hustling some other side gigs as well?
Totally freelance musician now. In quarantine, I've gotten a few producing gigs and string arranging gigs that come through. So it's a nice variety. So it's not all film scoring or TV scoring or whatever, which is nice because then every day I get to work on something a little different.
Okay. Do you think that's going to be a key for you long term, or are you feeling like you more want to focus in on one particular direction with what you're working on?
I definitely see myself continuing to do a variety of things just to feel creatively fulfilled and like I'm not stifling myself.
Mm-hmm.
Although I will continue to market myself primarily as a film composer because that's the career that I've been focusing on for a while and building my network on that side. And then producing and arranging strings and DJing and all of this stuff is kind of just like things that will come and go, if that makes any sense.
Make some money when it comes, and apart from that, not too fussed on it.
Right.
Besides the
Yeah,
film
like
scoring.
not being too worried if I have a break between producing gigs or whatever. It's a film score that I'm trying to get regularly.
Yeah, okay. Why, out of everything, is that the thing that I guess sort of is pulling you along?
Well, I've been composing for like 8 or 9 years now, and I fell into film scoring in college. I think I'm really drawn to visual storytelling. It's because I loved watching movies growing up. I mean, I still do, but there are certain movies you watch as a kid that still have such a profound impact on you now. And I think just that notion of being able to bring these stories to people is a really special experience that I want to be a part of. There's something so unique about writing for film that you can't get anywhere else in the music industry. And it's hard, but I feel like it's really worthwhile.
Okay, so what's one of those films for you as a child that you remember?
Definitely all the Harry Potters. I loved those. I watched all the Star Wars and Lord of the Rings with my dad. So those were the ones that was like our bonding experience. And then probably my favorite score as a kid, besides Harry Potter, was Stardust, which is based on a Neil Gaiman book.
Okay.
By the composer Ilan Eshkeri. It's like a fantasy adventure type score, so I feel myself quite drawn to those. But those are key films of my childhood.
Okay, nice. And you said you started composing sort of 8 or 9 years ago. What gave you the little push to start doing something like this?
So I was raised in the classical orchestra world as a violinist since I was 7 years old. And I think by the time I became an early teen, I was feeling like I didn't have enough agency in the orchestra. I was just playing what was on the page or what my teachers gave us. And so there was a lack of control and creative input that I found myself really lacking as I got older.
Yeah.
And I spoke with some teachers about it because I was feeling, it's like one of those feelings you can't quite describe in words when you first experience it, especially when you're younger. But I think they caught on that I was wanting some more. And my teachers were the ones who first suggested something like composing. And then I was able to get, a private teacher, and he did like video game music. And then by watching him and learning from him, I fell into the commercial composing world as opposed to the concerts composing world.
How long was it before from when you started to when you sort of came across the whole commercial side of things with films? And
I think it was like a year and a half.
Okay.
And I was trying, when you first start composing, for when you have no idea what you're doing and you're not quite sure of your voice yet, especially when you're a teenager. I mean, when I was a teenager, I was unsure of like everything. So when it came to composing, I was trying to, figure out what I felt fulfilled by musically. And I had actually never thought about film or video game composing being a thing until I had that teacher
Yeah.
who primarily does like little like iPhone game score
Okay.
things.
Yeah.
So it's kind of one of those things where I had to have a person being like, yeah, this job exists before I realized.
Yeah, I feel like there's a long list of jobs that they kind of skip over when you're going to school. You kind of have this like
Yeah.
really small group of jobs and that's all there is. And then you meet people along the way. And
Yeah, it's so weird because I went to a music school, but they never
okay.
they never like told me, I mean, you just play in the orchestra and that's it. You know, they really didn't explain all of these other avenues you can go as a musician. And so I was kind of like figuring it out as I went along. Yeah, you think they would be able to tell us these things, but here we are.
Here we are. Well, you figured it out yourself anyway, so that's the main thing.
Yeah.
So in terms of obviously you're working a lot at the moment, freelance. What's your you probably get, I'm sure people ask you, so what's your process when you sit down to score something? But I mean, that's obviously part of it. But I think being a creative person, more importantly, like what's your process to keep going? Because each day comes around again and you have to sit down and do some work. So what do you do outside of, I guess, the studio to feed your inspiration, to stay in a good mental state, just so that you can actually, if you're going to sit down every day, how do you make sure that time it actually gives you a nice output and you keep your head in the game?
Yeah, it's such an important question because I have struggled with mental health in the past, particularly with anxiety. And as I get older, there's certain things I realize that help that and help me keep a level head and continue to be excited about my work. One of those things is, trying to exercise every day, even if it's just walking my dogs, getting some fresh air.
Yeah.
Obviously, with COVID, I like to do things like go to restaurants and like be around people and go to the movie theaters. Obviously, we can't do that right now. So,
Yeah.
Figuring out how to make up for that was difficult. But luckily, like my best friend moved in with me, so I have her, and like knowing when to stop for the day. If I find myself feeling really frustrated and kind of like I'm hitting a wall, like telling myself it's okay to take a break. I think sometimes creative freelancers really struggle with the idea of boundaries between work and everything else. And so I kind of like to compartmentalize everything. And so I'm like, okay, I need to go into rest mode now. I'm not going to look at work emails. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to, be a potato or watch a movie or make sure I'm eating a nice meal. These type of things. So I will say some days are better than others. Sometimes I'm really excited about a project and it's like I can keep going. And other times it kind of feels like I'm really dragging myself along. And those type of days I take more time to rest on those days.
I guess, yeah, that's a good way to look at it. And in terms of, obviously you mentioned there you might watch a film or something like this. Are you getting, do you take a lot away from other people's scoring efforts? Or are you more so just looking to take your other influences and whatever comes out as a result of that?
If I'm watching a film for the first time, I do pay attention to the score a lot. So if I'm trying to go into not thinking mode, I'll watch something I've already seen.
Okay.
And like the show that I just like to veg out to is The Simpsons, because it's one of those things where I don't have to contemplate the score. I can just watch something dumb and, chill. Yeah. But I do find when I am watching new things, I'm paying a lot of attention to the score, and it can kind of be distracting at times because I'm like, wait, I need to pay attention to what's happening on screen. Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay. And what's, do you have, you mentioned a few things like taking the dogs for a walk, that kind of thing. Do you have any sort of like mental secret weapon that if, for example, if a deadline is looming and you just have to get work done, is there anything that you can always call on to kind of bring results?
That's a really good question. I've been like, this is kind of more of an all-encompassing idea, but I've gotten really into spirituality and thinking about how I exist within the universe. And at certain times, I like to remind myself that creative people we were gifted these skills. I mean, obviously we work hard to hone those skills and train ourselves, but there's certain, it kind of feels bigger than me. And I think when I get out of my own head and just think about kind of the grand scheme of things, like no matter how this project ends up, I'm still lucky to be able to create every day and feel called to this, because not everyone does. And that helps me a lot. It's been helping me a lot recently, especially in lockdown. But besides that, making sure I eat enough food, because if I don't eat enough, I get really cranky, like super like impatient. If I find myself going down that hole, I like treat myself to a meal that I really like, and it always puts me like in a much better mood. And I think those are the top. That, and of course, like if I'm having frustrations or needing motivation, like just talking to a friend or someone, sometimes you just need an outside voice being like, you can do it, like you're almost there, you're almost done, that kind of thing.
Yeah, 100%. There you go. I didn't think I was going to get any answers to that because it's a difficult question, but you gave me 3. I did well out of that one. But yeah, I think you're right for sure on all of those points, especially the eating. There's no one's going to get any good work done when they're hangry. That doesn't work.
Yeah. I set a timer on my phone to remind me to eat, because sometimes I just get so into it, I don't realize how much time is passing, and then I'm like, why do I feel like horrible right now? And it's like, oh, I haven't eaten for 10 hours. Like, so, little things like that to get you out of that weird headspace.
Yeah, 100%. That's very good. It's a good thing to take note of for sure. If you don't eat, everything falls apart.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so a bit more of a technical question now. So, in the last year or so, is there any like standout techniques or go-to tools that you've implemented that have made a huge difference to your like speed in your workflow?
One, just becoming more familiar with my DAW logic. I feel like every year I get faster with keyboard shortcuts and things like that. Mm-hmm. Having specific sample libraries loaded up in certain templates where I know I really like the sound of this instrument and I know how to program it to sound real. Of course, upgrading my sample libraries. I've upgraded my orchestral sounds recently, and it's a really great boost, not only sonically but creatively, because it sounds more realistic, and you have to do less to make it sound real. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand.
And besides that, when I'm producing, Isotope, Melodyne, like those have been really helpful if I'm producing someone's vocals or anything like that. And I upgraded my Sibelius software recently. With the newest upgrade, they make it really easy to import MIDI, and it saved me so much time after I upgraded it. It was a game changer.
That sounds very interesting. I haven't used Sibelius for, I don't know, like 15 years or something.
Yeah. But, no, their new one seems to be like they are actually listening to people's feedback and making certain things easier. So
that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let me have a look at this list here. What do you have coming up? Do you have any? Obviously, you're working quite a bit. Like, do you have any cool releases coming up that you're excited about that you want to tell people about?
Yeah. Well, on January 30th, I'm releasing an EP, and this EP was commissioned by the city of Tempe, Arizona. And the idea behind it is getting people to our local park. So the EP exists on streaming services as its own body of work, but it also exists as a sound installation in the park. So there's 5 tracks, and they each correspond to different areas of the park. And the local neighborhood voted on all the genres they wanted to hear. So it's a very diverse body of work. I feel like there's something for everyone, which is cool. And I got to produce things I'd never produced before, like pop. I produced a Portuguese R&B track, house. Like it's really all over the place. But
Okay.
yeah, it's really fun and much different from scoring work. So it was such a fun experience to go outside of my comfort zone and try new things. And of course, creating something new for the community, especially in a time like in a COVID lockdown, and being able to engage them artistically was a really cool experience.
Awesome. That sounds, that does sound like a bit of a challenge. That's a lot of, what do we get there? House, hip hop, Portuguese, something.
Yeah, it's like when I saw all the genres that people wanted, I was like, okay, so each track is just going to be totally different. So I guess it's different from traditional EPs in the sense that they're not all like the same style. So I'm trying to market it as the fact that it's really diverse and there's something for everyone. But I have a feeling that some people will probably be kind of surprised, like jumping between the tracks.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, the city really told me to do whatever I wanted. Like, they had no parameters, which is cool, but also scary at the same time.
Yeah.
Then you're like, I could literally do anything. So it took several months for me to really nail down the sounds I was looking for. It wasn't, an overnight thing.
Fair enough. Okay. And you said sort of you were through obviously your studies and everything, you ended up getting a little bit burnt out.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think was the cause of the burnout? Is it trying to survive outside of study or just study itself? Or
I think probably study itself. Music school is very, very demanding of its students. We just had, a lot of hours of ensembles, but also things like music history and music theory that are more academically based, where we were writing papers and things like that. And I think because I was also doing film scoring work at the same time outside of class, I was really, really busy, and I was working like 3 jobs at the time. So it was kind of like I had no time for myself for several years. And so by the time I got to senior year, I was feeling really tired of everything, but also I was feeling ready to move on with my professional career. And so by the end of school, I was feeling like, okay, I'm at the end, so I'm going to finish so I can get my degree, but I already need to be moving on to my career instead of just being a student. So that's also, I think, what contributed to that feeling. But I have some friends who felt similar, but then immediately went to grad school. So everyone processes it different.
Fair enough. Okay. And have you, I guess most of the music industry, there's a lot of sort of male dominance in it. Do you feel like you're dealing with struggles because you are a woman, not a man?
Yeah, it's such an important conversation to have. Film scoring is really male dominated. I think maybe 2% of the community are women. So it's I think early on when I first started as freelance, I was kind of feeling like I was very alone in my journey And so I sought out female composers whose work that I really admired and emailed a few of them. So from there, I was able to have conversations with women who are in the industry, who have been in the industry for longer than I have. And that helped tremendously. Just having people to look up to who know how you're feeling and are like, I did it and you can too. And also certain women composers have said, like, they'll look out for me, like if there's any issues or if something makes me uncomfortable, like they can back me up. And so slowly building a community like that really helps. And I think by continuing to have these conversations as well, and with Hollywood continuing its, push for more diverse crews and things like that, I think it is definitely going to improve. It's just very slow progress. So sometimes if I think about it too much, I get really frustrated, but I kind of just try to surround myself with people who support me and believe in me and will back me up in certain situations if they need to, is what's important.
Did you have to deal with a lot of, was there a lot of sort of pushback against you taking a career in music?
Like from my family or just like in general?
Yeah, family, friends.
No, not really. Luckily, my dad was a musician for a while and my mom works in theater. So they always encouraged me to follow what I felt passionate about. Although I will say in high school, my mom was like, don't you want to be a lawyer? Or like,
yeah.
like, no. So, I mean, it's important to have conversations like that. Like, how are you going to make money? These types of things. But I never had someone that was like, you suck and you'll never be able to do it. So that was nice. Yeah, I'm pretty lucky in that sense because I know a lot of people don't have that similar experience.
Okay. And who are your, if you look towards your influencers that are out there working in the business at the moment, or perhaps finished working in the business, who are they?
Right now, I think my biggest influence is Labyrinth, who he's a singer-songwriter, but he scored Euphoria's soundtrack on HBO.
Okay.
Besides him, I think Ludwig Göransson is a really awesome composer, and I think it's really cool how he creates hybrid scores. Like, for instance, with The Mandalorian, he uses traditional orchestral instruments, but he's also using like elements of EDM and these crazy things. And because that style of composing is something that I feel really drawn to as well. And I think he just seems like a really cool, down-to-earth guy, and not every composer is cool and down-to-earth. So I'd have to say him. And then, of course, like women composers who have looked out for me, like Lolita Ritmanis has been really kind to me. Rachel Portman, I haven't spoken to personally, of course, but I think she's really cool. So I feel constantly inspired by those around me too. Cool.
Well, it's really nice to talk to you. We obviously your social media money paid off, because that's obviously how we came across your channel. But we stay in touch for sure, because it looks like you're building a good foundation for yourself pretty early on, which is awesome. But we also, if you'd like, we can drop you some sound libraries and instruments and stuff like that to have a play with.
Yeah, totally. That'd be sick.
So we'll do that. And we'll put something together with the video. I don't know, we're just trying to get a new editor at the moment to chop things up and whatever. But we'll probably do a small article feature on the interview as well.
Awesome.
But yeah, you said you just upgraded your your string library.
Yes. It's the Spitfire Audio LB1.
Nice.
It's great. I've heard really good things about orchestral tools as well. But I kind of I'm trying to limit myself on the sound, the libraries I'm buying, because that was a pretty big investment, the Spitfire one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's besides the Spitfire one, I've gotten some random, like I got like a children's choir one. I'm just trying to like build my arsenal of sounds.
What are you missing? Where's the biggest holes in your sound arsenal?
That's a good question. I think Albion 1 does a good job with strings, but I might want some more brass percussion specific libraries. But besides that, I'm also super into electronics. So like anything synth, I get excited about. And they have some good ones in that library, but of course I can always do with more synths.
Cool. We just put out a brass boutique, which is like a hybrid brass and
perfect
synth thing.
There you go.
So I'll send you that. You can have a play with that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Something to do with drums. We have a lot of drums, but yeah, I'll send some stuff over. Let me know what you think about it.
Yeah.
And what's on for the rest of the day?
I'm working on a dance show, and so it's kind of like the choreography and the music is happening at the same time, is being built at the same time. Okay. So trying to keep up with how fast the dancers are going it's one of those things you have to plan out for weeks to make sure I get everything done, because it's about like an hour show, which is going to become a dance film. So that's probably what I'll be doing, and getting some lunch. For sure.
Very nice. Okay, awesome. Well, that sounds interesting. But yeah, I'll get some stuff sent over to you. It was really nice to chat, and we'll keep in touch.
Yeah, thank you.
See
Perfect.
what you're up to.
Yeah, totally. Thanks so much for having me.
No worries.
It's fun to talk. All right, have a great rest of your night.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.